Hey guys, RCS tonight, coming to you live from New York. I have another film fiction here with me by TheSakramentRose called The Dark Mass. Let's begin. Twilight looked down at the small flight of steps, the dark, damp air bringing an unpleasant taste to her attention. She illuminated her horn and looked around the space, but the darkness was a creeping, festering thing, and it only allowed her to see 2 feet in front of her. She descended the steps, cracked and slippery, with a strange sensation of dread. But curiosity got the better of her, and she continued down the slope of the broken steps. The shed she had discovered behind the castle in the woods had drawn her, beckoned to her. She knew she needed to go down there, though she knew not why. Her mind was pleading, screaming with her to retreat. But she only went deeper into the damp, moldy space. Her magic was starting to give her a migraine from the view, so she dimmed it, resulting in even worse vision. She heard a squelch under her hooves and didn't dare to look, for many unpleasant things could have been down there. After some time of descending to the steps, she came upon an old wooden door, which looked sealed from years of neglect. Mustering her strength, she tried to push the door open, but it budged not. Using her magic, she managed to open the door in the slightest way, just enough for her to fully remove it from its hinges. A gust of foul air greeted her, and her stomach churned at the stench of rot and decay. But curiosity was a strong thing, and she stepped inside, propping the door open with the rock she had found inside. Inside, she lit her horn, and the contents of the room made her gag. Corpses and skeletal remains lay on the cold stone floor, and flesh and blood had stained the walls, giving it a reddish-brown coloring. And the filth and the rot made her stomach completely empty itself. And she turned for the stairs from whence she came, but the door slammed shut, sealing her inside. She pounded on the door, trying to open it, but it was too heavy. She was trapped. She sat down on the floor, gasping for air, in the enclosed confines of the tomb. Thoughts ran through Twilight's head, engulfing her in a tidal wave of dread. What if she died down here? What if her body was never found? She pounded the damp, unforgiving walls, beating them until her hooves ached, and tears welled in her eyes. Her magic wasn't allowing her to escape, for something was preventing it, anything more than illumination magic. She tried again to channel energy into a destruction spell, but nothing happened. She tried teleportation, but was given the same result. She shivered, the cold, unnatural air chilling her to the very core. Looking around in the dark, her horn faintly shivering, she saw a small, round knob in the wall. Gaining a sliver of hope back, she pushed herself up again and grabbed the handle. She pulled, but nothing happened. But then she pushed harder and harder. The stone gave way, letting in the last fading rays of the sun. She shielded her eyes from the glare and looked around. But something was indeed wrong. This was not a place known to her. In fact, this was nowhere close to Ponyville. She walked along the dirt path, and a crow perched upon a dead log, staring at her with void-like eyes. It cawed, and in a moment flapped its wing, taking flight. It stayed low to the dirty, overgrown path, and Twilight followed. Indeed, the path was old, worn, and weeds, roots, and other things were covering the surface, leaving her guessing as to where the path would lead. As Twilight walked, the crow suddenly flew up into the sky, leaving her entirely alone. She looked around and found an odd sight to her left. Rising high as the trees and black as the night sky stood a tower. The trees around it grew thickly, and the cold air was filled with a steady growing fog. She went towards the tower, and the crunching sounds of twigs and leaves surrounded her. Her heartbeat was rising, telling her to never venture forth into the dark tower. But curiosity was a dangerous thing, and she came to the entrance. A stone, Gothic doorway blocked her way. A picture of a nightmarish creature adorned on top. It had a hideous, deformed limb, face and body with a veil that seemed as if it were made of shadows, as to not be destroyed. But the most horrible part to it was the eyes, black, void-like, seeming as if they burned into her soul. The eyes of the creature stuck in her mind, and her head started pounding. She looked away and opened the door, revealing the dismal interior of the tower. The floor was covered in dust and filth, and the rough stone and wood echoed her hoofsteps as she wandered through the chamber. Several small doors stood on each side, and one had previously been opened, revealing a long, dark, cold stairway down into the inky blackness of the earth. She saw a torch on the wall and grabbed it, trying to light it with her magic. But the slight glow was the only spell she could muster. It seemed as if the chamber she had first set hoof in had inhibited all of her other spells, and this fact terrified her. No room had ever been able to do that to her before, and she tried the teleportation spell with a negative result. She sat on the ground, trying to steady her breathing to concentrate. She tried the destruction spell. This time she managed to conjure it, and she expectantly aimed it to the other doors, but the shot merely made a small mark, and she growled in frustration. The mental strain was taking a toll on her, so she decided that there was only one thing to do, and she descended the stairs. The damp, cold air of the passage sent a smell of fear, and as she reached a flat spot on which she tried to see around, nothing but blackness and foul air met her, and she noticed the door not too far away. Descending the last few steps, she raised herself to open the door, unaware of what she would find, but curiosity as to what lay ahead. She pulled the door open slowly, creaking on rusty, unseen hinges. As she peered around the space, searching for something, but all she found was outside again. But this was impossible. She had just gone several feet on the ground, right? But this didn't look or feel like the Everfree. The sky was dark yet glowing, as if some mystic force kept it shimmering, a slight glimmer to see by. It was impossible unless Celestia or Luna knew what she was doing. She stepped forward, her hooves crunching on fallen leaves and dead twigs. The trees looming above her as if silent judges, deciding her fate. As she walked through the trees, she felt unseen eyes glowing at her from the inky darkness of the trees. She tried to steady her breathing as she attempted to see what she was assuming pursuing her. Her heartbeat went faster and faster, and the ringing in her ears rose to a pitch higher than she'd ever heard before, making her drop and cover her ears in pain. But when she opened her eyes, she knew something was wrong. Not a single noise could be heard. Not a single thing moved, and she ran. She ran like her life depended on it, which she knew it surely must. And she attempted to escape the nightmare in which she was certain she inhabited, for this couldn't be reality, could it? She saw nothing but darkness and the blur of black trees, their long, bony branches like fingers reaching out to drag her into the depths of the void-like forest in which she ran. She heard cracking of twigs behind behind and around her. She knew for certain that she was not indeed, and was never alone. As soon as she descended the stairs, she thought back to the statue and cringed. She hoped that she was wrong, and the thought entered her head. It was the thing pursuing her. It didn't make any logical sense for such a thing to exist, even with all the magical elements working in the world, but then again, nothing in this dream made any sense. She looked behind her and saw the unnameable, unthinkable, maddening sight of what chased and sought after her. A writhing black mass of shadow and demonic protrusions was behind her, leaking foul substances and the odor of rotten flesh and metallic blood, making Twilight gag horrendously as she tried to escape. She saw a mossy, cracked stone wall ahead. In her head, she thought it was a building or some form of escape, but alas, it was a simple wall, and she found herself with her back against it. She looked ahead, and the unspeakable thing came even closer, its scaly body and slimy black protrusions waving wildly as it neared her. It was almost upon her now, and she screamed to try to call out for help or assistance. But her magic still failed, and soon her screams simply ceased to exist. Well, guys, that was the Dark Mass. The Black Mass, I'm sorry. And that was by my friend TheSakramentRose, who was formerly the Sacrament 9666. Yes, indeed. So, go on FinFiction and check her out, because she has some amazing stories, and, well, I support her with all that I know. And, we've been talking and we've been thinking about, like, some ideas of what she could write. And, yeah. But, hope you guys have enjoyed. This was FinFiction with Arceus. If you're new to my channel, subscribe. And, I'll see if I can pump out more videos later. And some of you have been probably wondering, Arceus, where have the videos been going? Well, as you guys know, well, as you heard earlier in the video, I have been moving to New York. And yeah, it's taken a while, but I've settled in, and yeah. I kind of set up everything how it would have been in my old home. So, yeah. Also, quick shout out to, Mud the Adorably Nerdy Grovile, one of my friends, Travis Mud, Jill the Meloetta, and Eileen Foster, the Queen of Pansis, and finally, the Kingdom of, the Kingdom of. Go check out the 3 people I mentioned in the Kingdom of as a community. Yeah. So, hope to see you guys later. Good night.